Special Operations Training Detachment, SOT D West, Burrow Team. Coming at you from NTC, Off the Radar.
This is Off the Radar. I'm your host, Captain Connor Mang, an Observer Coach Trainer for Special Operations at the National Training Center. This is Off the Radar Season 2. I'm your host, Captain Mang. In this season, we will continue to discuss SOF and LISCO and all things NTC. For our first episode, I talk with our guests about Logisticians and SOF at the National Training Center. This afternoon, we had the opportunity to sit down and talk with Goldminer 07 and Goldminer 40. I'm going to just go ahead and open up to them and ask them to do a quick introduction and kind of explain their role here at NTC. Starting with you, sir.
Appreciate it, Connor. Lieutenant Colonel Eric Shockley, go by Eric. Just recently arrived here as the Goldminer 07, so taking over from Colonel Octavia Davis, who did a great job for the last couple of years, really looking at tactical level sustainment. So for us, that's generally your BSBs or Brigade Support Battalions, and then either your C or DSSBs, so your Core Combat Sustainment Support Battalion, or your Division Sustainment Support Battalion. So generally tactical level logistics. As far as myself, just over 20 years in the Army, career logistician, career conventional force. A little bit of interactions with SOF on various deployments, a couple of combat deployments to Iraq, a couple of operational deployments in Europe, and a little bit of shorter time in the Indo-PACOM theater. Other than that, again, new out here as an OCT, Observer Coach Trainer. A little bit of experience doing that down in Louisiana. I think most people generally count their rotations, but I don't have any idea how many I did down there. I've just spent a couple of years down there. But again, new to the team, looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Sergeant Major.
My name is Command Sergeant Major Krista Peterson, go by Christa, and I am Goldminer 40. Been here at NTC for going on a year now. I have nothing but conventional time in the Army, mainly dealing with IBCTs, ABCTs. Again, just a year dealing with that, so a lot of new stuff I've learned myself. I have one deployment to Afghanistan. And I was a battalion sergeant major for a CSSB that converted over to a DSSB up at Fort Irwin.
Okay. And so CSSB, that's a Combat Support Sustainment Battalion. So we're talking, or battalion, correct?
Yeah, Combat Sustainment Support Battalion.
Sustainment Support, thank you, sir. So that's going to exist within usually an IBCT, is this correct? Or within, or is its own separate?
No, so it's going to be completely separate.
Okay.
They used to, I think they all generally were CSSBs at one point.
That is correct.
Some of them have converted to DSSB, so division specific. The Combat Sustainment Support Battalion, generally not aligned to a specific division. I think at one point they were Corps Support Battalions many, many years ago. But yeah, not specific to a division. They'll support a brigade or brigade combat team, but usually on a general basis. So again, usually not specifically aligned to them.
Okay. And in my experience as an infantry officer, we had a BSB that did fall under the IBCT, and that was under the brigade commander's span of control. This was a battalion within the IBCT or ABCT that had a multitude of assets we can talk about. But is that still the case now? We still have BSBs that come out here and support brigades during rotations?
Yeah. Still the case, regardless of if it's a infantry brigade or light brigade, striker brigade, armor, or heavy. They've all generally got a BSB within them, and all those. There'll be some small variations, but all generally have a headquarters element, distribution unit, a maintenance unit, a medical company, and then several forward support companies that are generally aligned to a battalion or squadron that they provide direct support to.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. So let's talk real briefly again, because a lot of our audience may not be familiar with CSSBs or BSBs or just logisticians as a whole. Unlike like an infantry company, within that company, you're going to have mainly 11 Bravos, 11 Bravos, and you'll have some mortarmen. You may have a supply sergeant and some 25 series. And within a BSB, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to have upwards of 20 plus, maybe 30 plus MOSs, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you guys talk, just based on your experience, Sergeant Major, here, and sir being a battalion commander, what are some of those MOSs and kind of skill sets that you're going to be bringing to the fight when you come out to an NTC or rotation here?
super interesting question, mainly because, for a brigade support battalion or BSB, like I said, a lot of it's similar. I'll turn it over to Krista here in a minute to talk the CSSB perspective, because with the CSSBs, those ones that have aligned to a division generally have now the same structure as far as like their Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie companies, whereas they used to be numbered and independently deployable, and they still do deploy separately for the most part. But then they can have any number of additional companies under them that may or may not have anything to do with logistics. So when I was assigned at Fort Riley, our CSSB then at the time, I think we had a chemical company. For a while, we had a CAV unit that was under us as they were getting shut down at the time as the Army went through some changes. So it can just be a very wide-ranging skill set that you have. Within the BSB itself, so you're going to have your normal staff. And then as part of that staff, you have the support operations section. And they're really looking at how does the entire brigade itself get supported. So you'll have some specialties in there. You have a 92 Mike, which is your mortuary affairs person. You'll have some 89 Bravos, your ammunition folks. They typically work hand in hand with the Brigade S3. Depending on how that relationship is, really directs how they work. Within the distribution company, you still have your 92 Alphas that you may have been familiar with in the motor pool, just a lot more of them. So your supply techs that handle like your warehouse of supplies. You've got your fuelers that handle both fuel and water now, I believe is the way they've gone as they've merged those MOSs. Your Bravo company is going to have all your standard mechanics, but then they've also got a lot of specialties that can work on your night vision devices. One of the latest changes is where they've added a lot of things with like additive manufacturing, so they can do welding, they can do machining, things like that you may not see in a normal unit. And then obviously your medical company across the board, basically a mini hospital for lack of a better description. You can have an X-ray tech, a lab tech. You got your doctors, both emergency surgeon types and just your run-of-the-mill general medicine. And then those forward support companies are going to have a smaller version of that. They won't have the medical that usually falls under the HHC or headquarters company within each of the battalions, but they've got the same kind of fuel aspect, mechanics, truck drivers, and things like that. But as far as the CSSB, I mean, you've lived it much more recently than me. So.
When I was up at Fort Drum, it was a CSSB, and then it converted to a DSSB. So the CSSB, we had the field feeding company and the movement control team, as well as the Alpha company, the composite supply company. The Bravo company was the maintenance company, and the Charlie company was the transportation company. Okay. When we converted over to the DSSB, we lost the field feeding company and the movement control team, and we gained a little bit of medical personnel, and then everything else stayed the same.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Sir, go ahead.
I was going to say the thing that I find interesting with that, or maybe for the listeners out there might find interesting, is that when they deal with a CSSB or DSSB, whether here at the National Training Center or, deployed somewhere, it may not have that same setup. So even if you go meet them at their home station, you get a feel for what their unit is, it may be a completely different setup whenever they go downrange with them or go on a mission with them. They command up like 9 to 11 companies of varying types. You might have multiples of the same type. You might have just a wide range of different types. So just interesting. It's not that you can just go, okay, that's a CSSB on paper. That's what I'll see when I'm working with them for a mission. It could be very different.
Right. Sergeant Major, you said something that got me thinking. It sounds like CSSBs or DSSBs, BSBs kind of have your hand in almost every phase of operations out here, from getting sustainment and pieces of equipment into theater, if we were talking going into an actual theater to fight, or if it's out here, are they actually bringing their own equipment to NTC and practicing like loading connexes and doing all that stuff? Feeding, that's something I, as a SOF guy, I just wouldn't even think about, but that's like a huge thing, sustaining the fight for a brigade combat team. Like, how are you feeding this 5,000 man brigade? So it's really interesting to hear the scope of skill sets. And like you said, sir, like not everyone is going to be cookie cutter. I'm assuming there's some differences depending on if they're supporting maybe an ABCT where it's armored. Mechanics are going to be specifically trained to work on track vehicles versus an IBCT where you might have, I don't know if there's more or less of a package that supports, an airborne airborne brigade combat team. But it's very interesting to see and hear you guys talk just this myriad of skill sets that are coming here. I did want to ask, Sergeant Major, you've been here for about a year, sir. You just got here. You said you had some experience as an OC down at Fort Johnson. Have you guys done any rotations here at NTC as an RTU?
No, I have not done any rotations at NTC as an RTU.
Okay.
I have done 2 rotations at JRTC.
Okay.
I've done 2 at JRTC, 3 here at the NTC as an RTU. And Connor, I mean, your point about the challenge for the logistician, you're spot on as far as the timeline. So one of those rotations when I was here with the LTP or leader training program, you come out generally at some point 2-3 months ahead of your rotation and go through some planning. But our coach talked to us about, hey, the logisticians fight starts kind of from now, and they usually do a resourcing meeting as part of that session. Starts from now all the way until the rotation is done. Everything is offloaded from the train, back in the arms room, and the flippals are complete.
Yeah,
it's a long fight.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. And you brought up something, sir, that me and Mike were talking about prior to LTP. We're going to jump ahead a little bit, but LTP, for those who don't know, is essentially a conference that units are going to come to prior to their rotation to do planning and get a little bit of an understanding of what's expected of them before they show up. Is that correct, Sergeant Major?
That is correct.
Okay. And we have seen from the soft side of the house that, and I'm sure it's the same for any unit that's coming here, the units that invest into LTP are generally just more successful when they come back out here for their actual rotation. Would you guys agree, or do you see a trend? Is there a trend at all that we see here with LTP participation? It's a tongue twister.
I'd say 100% yes. I'd say some of it depends on, you might do the LTP and then have a wholesale leader changeover in the interim. That happened to me in my most recent rotation here. They were doing the LTP a couple months before me and my peers all took battalion command. And then we came in, all new field grade officers came in, and we came and did the rotation. So you could have said like, hey, they're going to do amazing because they heavily invested in LTP. And then we came through and debatable about whether we did amazing or not. But
I would say the same thing. I think what a unit puts into LTP and who shows up to LTP may have how successful their rotation goes. I mean, we see, they come to our mine and we brief them on LTP things. The command SAR majors get together and we talk about trends that we've seen out in the box. And I've had SAR majors come and they come spend the day with me out in the box, and I show them around the box a little bit, and they see me interact with the RTU, and I point out, things, hey, do this, recommend do this, do that, in order for you to be successful.
I want to pull on something you said, Sergeant Major. So you said it depending on who they send to LTP. Who are you recommending? And there's no right answer, but who do you guys see as the value when they come out to LTP? And this is probably a very dynamic answer depending on who's coming out here. If it's a soft unit, if it's an IBCT headquarters, if it's a CSSB, but who are you guys generally recommending that they're sent to come participate?
Definitely sending the battalion commander and the battalion command sergeant major.
Okay.
Definitely come. There's been a few instances where for some reason the command sergeant major didn't come, but that's many reasons why that could have happened. Definitely the staff. More NCO involvement, not just sending the officers, but also sending the NCOs who are a part of that staff so they can be a part of that planning process.
Okay. So your S3 SAR majors and some of your senior NCOs that are planning in your 3 shops and potentially some of your other support areas. I know for us, in my experience, you kind of hear LTP being talked about, and it's one of those things that units want to go to, but it's always seems kind of like a hassle sometimes, where it's like, well, do we have the time? Do we have funding? Do we have the personnel, like you're talking about, Sergeant Major? I look at it almost as a PDSS for a deployment, more so. I'm getting an opportunity for my key leaders and some key personnel, whether it's, hey, we really want to try a new comms package that we're going to send as a brigade, and we want to go out there and send some of our 25 series to see if this is supportable and if it's sustainable out there, and go and actually see on ground, the box, the architecture we have here to support stuff. So I look at it as a PDSS, and my thoughts are, is there any type of crosstalk between maybe like some of the infantry battalions that are coming and their leadership, between you guys and the RTUs that you guys are coming to kind of watch, and OC? Is there any type of that, or is it very, you would say, like kind of stovepipe of excellence where, we're coming out and this is our LTP for the sustainment brigade or battalion, and then the infantry guys and potentially like your fires, or what do you guys see out here?
It's a bit of a mix. Obviously, I'm reaching back to previous experience because you can talk to how it is now, but the ones who, again, are postured to do well will have done that crosstalk. It is very much focused on, hey, for the battalion level staff, for the brigade level staff, giving them that iteration to go through their planning. I'll echo what Krista said. The commander and the command sergeant major, like, every effort to be here, because it's really training for you, and it may be the first time that the staff gets to hear from their senior NCO and their senior officer about what they're trying to get out of it. So it is very much focused on, like, hey, what does this team need to be doing during that week plus? But those that are postured to do well do some of that crosstalk. So you'll see a battalion XO over there talking to the support operations officer. Hey, this is how we're developing the plan. And then, hey, how do we get this plan supported, and those kind of things. And you can see those informal relationships start to begin. And those units are at least postured to do better within the rotations.
And I mentioned earlier cross-talking. So all the command sergeant majors, I'll be a little more specific, from the RTU and all the command sergeant majors, the other 40s from the critter teams, with Outlaw 40 get together and with the brigade CSM and go through trends. We each go around the room and give them a couple of trends that we see. So there's a lot of cross-talking going on in there with the BSB, the maneuver battalions, and everybody else who's involved.
That's great. Is usually the RTU, whatever logistical unit is coming out, are they usually co-located with the brigade or whatever unit of action they're supporting? Are they usually co-located at home station? So if they're all coming from like Riley, the reason I ask is because I know for SOF, we're spread out everywhere. So if a first group AOB is coming, it may be the 97th Civil Affairs Battalion, which is at Fort Bragg. And it may be, the PSYOP battalion may be coming from Fort Bragg. So we don't have the opportunity to actually train physically together. We may not physically be located, so we're not always integrated in those processes. Is that usually the case where the unit, the logistical unit you guys are seeing, is coming with a package from home station with a unit they've already been working with, or sometimes maybe, sometimes not?
Sometimes maybe, sometimes not. I'd say for the BSBs, yes. Yeah. You're generally working with people that you see every day, coming from the same location, et cetera. Especially now, sometimes you can get the DSSB from your home station if you're at a division level installation. Sometimes that lines up, and that makes it super helpful. So like my most recent JRTC rotation, our DSSB came with us from the installation we were at, and it just made things a lot easier because you already know the people, you've got those relationships. But for the CSSBs and really the DSSBs, like, you got Compo 1, Compo 2, Compo 3. So again, active duty, Guard, Reserve. When you're dealing with the Guard and Reserve folks, I mean, more power to them, because they've just got a tough job, because they might have someone who is activated that plays a key role in their unit, and so now they're no longer available for the rotation. Usually, depending on how their rotation is set up, they may not be able to stay for the whole rotation because of the way they get put on active orders. So the leader might be having some turnover even just within the rotation. And then you're just dealing with units from all over. So you got, an active duty unit that's doing this, but they're not from your home station. Then you got a reserve component that's from another place. And then obviously you're not used to working with them. So for them, and I mean, you lived it, it's a huge challenge trying to get all those people onto the same page.
Right. The reason we ask is for kind of people that are listening, the units that are planning on coming in the future, if they participate in LTP, I think it's a value for soft units to really get invested in LTP and look at, like you were saying, Sergeant Major, the NCOs specifically, but officers as well, to start that crosstalk early. So when you go back to your home station and you have, another 3 or 4 months before you actually redeploy back out here, you have some time and some networks built to start discussing kind of, hey, how do you guys, establish role twos, and what is your guys' brigade commander's philosophy on, um, you know, bomb packages that you guys are going to come out and use to support us, or we're going to help support you guys. So I think that's important. I don't know how much that happens, but sounding from what you guys are telling us, it's kind of where the success starts first is at LTP. I'd like to transition a little bit. We can talk some vignettes kind of at the end, but right now I'd like to say, so we talk about CFI 3, and that's the Conventional Forces Interdependence, Interoperability, and Integration. And what we mean there is how SOF and conventional forces are doing all three of those. And I was looking up the definitions for the three of these because they're very distinct and different. So interdependence being, we need each other. It's not this dynamic of, well, I only need you when I need you, and there's really nothing that you need from me. And I think if that dynamic exists, we start to then just kind of separate as SOF and conventional forces. Interoperability is probably, in my opinion, the biggest one, because if we can't work together, then the failure's already begun. And then integration is how, whether it's this personnel, units, or processes, how we're really putting people and systems in the right places so that our ability to talk, communicate, and work together, that interoperability is efficient. So I'm curious, Sergeant Major, I know we talked a little bit before we started recording. A lot of the critter teams, it sounds like, don't get a lot of interaction with Burrow team. The SOF elements out here, the CA teams, the ODAs, the AOBs, the SIDETs. What areas do you think right now there's opportunity for that to change, as far as with a CSSB? Or let me rephrase it. Maybe this is a better way of saying it. So there needs to be that interdependence, right? So if an AOB commander is sending ODAs out past the FLOT into the division deep or the corps deep, there's an implied understanding that we're not going to be able to support you with the package we have at the AOB, right? And that may come from the brigade combat team that they're aligned with. It may come from the SODIF. It may come from the division. But that in itself inherently, I think, needs to have that breeds the communication that needs to happen. So if we're relying on some type of capability, whether it's recovery of our vehicles, supply of ammunition, or maybe it's medevac through that medical company, what do you think are there opportunities where we can see that kind of being developed out here at NTC?
Krista, if I can jump in, actually. Yeah. Connor, I mean, you said a lot of good things there. I think starting with the interoperability piece, for the soft side, probably just need to understand for most of the sustainment units, they're not going to see the same level of technical, capability when it comes to things like comms and things like that. So it could be as simple as our comms platforms just won't talk to each other. And unfortunately, with the different nets that we're using and things like that, so that can be an issue with that. And then probably the human domain of interoperability. Not that one is better than the other; it's just different. So on the conventional side, if you were to go with a stereotype, it's probably, hey, we have, these forms that we fill out, and the request has to be on these certain timelines, and there are all these, rules associated with what we do. Whereas on the soft side, it's a little more free flowing. For a conventional force loggy, common to refer to, soft logistics as credit card logistics. So there's a human aspect there that if you can take that other person's perspective, for the conventional force, like, hey, I have to understand what the soft side is doing. And then for the soft side, it's probably figuring out, almost like helping the conventional force figure out like how they can help them. And that's going back to your point about LTP. If you can tie in early from the soft side, and like, hey, what does this particular unit have, or do they think they're going to show up with? If you're talking about a CSSB or DSSB, acknowledging that may change. BSB a little more straightforward. Then they can probably help the conventional force, get to what that answer is. Like, hey, I know you have a machining capability. Would this be an option? Because a lot of times we're just so in the fight, especially at a CTC rotation, like my thinking capacity is certainly not anywhere near 100%. So them knowing that and having that relationship ahead of time, early and often. As far as the interdependence, so, as you had said before the podcast, when we initially started talking about this, what doctrine tells us, the soft units just aren't set up to support themselves fully. It's just not possible with their mission. Doctrine doesn't even imply that they're supposed to. And so they are dependent on the conventional force to provide some of that sustainment support. But I think there's just as much value for the conventional force, especially like out here. You've probably seen it, like when you're dealing with, you're way out in the desert. I have zero recon capability other than taking someone off a mission. Like, hey, you're not going to dispense fuel. You're going to go do a patrol, whether dismounted or mounted, as opposed to, hey, I know I have this team of whatever type that's going to be coming in to get support of X. Can I contact them ahead of time? Like, hey, we're tracking you're going along this route. We've been getting indicators of this. Can you, maybe, see what's out there, potentially do some sensing for us. So we can get some things on the conventional side from the soft side as well. Just speaking to your point about interdependence. But yeah, a lot going on there. I think that's why the relationships, again, to your point, during LTP would be huge.
This has been part 1 of our discussion with Goldminer 07 and 40. Stay tuned for part 2, where we continue to discuss SOF CFI 3 and SOF's interaction with conventional force logisticians here at NTC. If you are interested in being a guest on the Off the Radar podcast or have a topic you'd like us to cover, please contact the Off the Radar team at offtheradarpodcastteam@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Off the Radar, where our SOF prepares for conflict. Like, subscribe, and share on your listening platform.